Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to another Speedlight Saturday. In today's video, I'm going to give you guys a quick and dirty lighting breakdown and editing breakdown of the following photo. To do this, I used a Sony Alpha 6500, a Sony 16 to 50mm kit lens, two Yongnuo YN560 Mark IV Speedlights, and Magmod gels and accessories. My camera settings were ISO 320, f3.5 with a 1/80 shutter speed. The first light was at 1/16 power at 105mm with a red gel and a Magmod grid aimed at my back. The second light was at 1/64 power, 24mm with a blue gel shooting through a medium-sized softbox pointed up at me from the ground. You can also see that I'm spraying what looks to be hairspray. This is called fog or haze in a can, and you can buy it online. I'll leave a link down below in the description. This is really good for adding a bit of atmosphere to your image, and it helps enhance the colors of the lights. Here is each light individually. Here are all the lights together. And this is the final edit. I started off by duplicating the layer and then using the pen tool to cut my subject out from the background. Once I completely outlined my subject with the pen tool, I made a selection and then added a layer mask, effectively separating the subject and the background onto two different layers. The reason I did this was so that I can add a bit of blur to my background without affecting my subject. I only added a little bit of blur to the bottom half of the image because I like the texture of the haze in the upper half. Once I finished adding the blur, I opened my subject layer into Camera Raw, going up to Filter and then Camera Raw, and then used radial and gradient adjustments to brighten my upper half and darken my lower half. I then moved on to the dodge and burn using curve layer adjustments. Using broad strokes and painting white on the layer masks, I selectively brightened the highlights on the dodge layer and selectively darkened the shadows on the burn layer. Dodging and burning, when done right, can add a lot of dimension to your image, similar to shading a circle to make it look like a 3D sphere. After dodge and burn, I enhanced the glow of the lights on my mask. The main technique used here was creating a new layer with the blending mode set to linear dodge, double-clicking the layer to open up the layer properties, and adding an outer glow. Play around with the opacity, size, and range sliders to get a desired effect. I then painted on that layer with a small, soft brush with a light blue color at 100% flow and opacity. Next, I added more of a glow to the background by creating a new layer behind my subject layer and setting the blending mode to screen. Then I used a lasso tool to create a large, irregular selection and filled it with a similar color of the light behind me. Then I added a strong Gaussian blur to that layer. To get the glow to look a little bit more natural, I added a layer mask to that layer and painted it in black with a custom smoke brush to break up the smooth gradient a bit. I then lowered the layer's overall opacity. I repeated that process, but with the blue glow on a new layer in front of my subject. To enhance the existing colors, I created a new layer with the blending mode set to color dodge and painted over the red areas with a large, soft, dark red brush with a flow set to around 20%. I then did the same with the blue brush over the areas that are blue. Then to add a bit of a magical feel and more atmosphere to the image, I added a few layers of embers from my custom Fire and Embers asset pack. If you're interested in this, I'll have a link down below where you can check it out. After I dragged in the layers, I set the blending mode of those layers to linear dodge and changed the color. I then erased away bits that I didn't want. To finish off the image, I held Ctrl-Alt-Shift and pressed E to merge all visible layers into a new layer. I set that layer's blending mode to overlay, went to Filter, Other, High Pass Filter, and played around with the slider until I had a desirable level of sharpening. Next, I again merged all visible layers into a new layer, double-clicked the layer to open up the layer properties, and turned off the red channel by unchecking the box that says R. I hit OK, and then offset the layer a bit by a few pixels to add a subtle chromatic aberration effect. Once I merged all visible layers into a new layer, I then opened that layer in Camera Raw by going to Filter and then selecting Camera Raw. Here I adjusted my vibrance, saturation, highlights and shadows, as well as curves and added some film grain. I usually finish off my images with similar settings, so I just loaded up a preset that I saved with all the adjustments that I needed. The final adjustment is for color toning. I went down to the adjustment layers icon and added a color lookup adjustment layer. Here you can select built-in lookup tables, also called LUTs, or you can upload your own. You can find custom LUTs all over the internet, both paid and free. Since I already like the levels of my image, I was sure to set the blending mode of that adjustment layer to color, that way it only affects the colors of my image. And that was the whole process. Guys, keep in mind, this is just how I edit. So nothing I did in this breakdown is the proper or correct way to approach things. It's just what I like to do. Everyone does things different. So the biggest advice I can give is to experiment a lot. Try different techniques and see what works for you. Guys, thanks for watching. If you like this video, maybe give it a thumbs up. If you have any ideas for videos you want me to make for you, let me know in the comments below. And if you want to see more content like this in the future, consider subscribing. And until next time, stay creative.